How is everybody today? That's all? Try that again. How's everybody today? Why would you be any other way? You got a choice, don't you? All right, I got something. Everybody got a piece of paper to write on? While you're digging out paper, I am a franchisee of Action Coach, which is in like 59 countries now. So we're the largest business coaching organization on the planet. The cool thing about Action Coach is there's lots of coaches learning lots of things, and we share it, and we talk, and we help each other. It's a very abundant environment. So everything that I'm teaching you, I've been taught by some other Action Coaches and has either benefited me greatly or some of my clients. All right, here's what I want you to write down. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. You're coming out of your office, and you have a crew of people showing up to work for you. There's a gentleman who is starting his first day of work that day. You walk out the door, and you see that he is late. He's arriving 10 minutes late on his first day of work. What's the first thing that goes through your mind in terms of words, and what emotion are you feeling? Write that down. First thing that goes through your mind in terms of words and the emotion you're feeling. Write that down, please. Have a seat. All right, who's going to volunteer?
Do you want to be here?
Do you want to be here? That's right. And what's your emotion?
Anger.
Anger. All right. Anybody else?
Empathy.
A little bit of empathy. Desire to encourage. Isn't that interesting? Yes.
Apprehension. Seeing how it's his first day, it's like, oh boy, we'll see if this guy's going to work out, how it's going to go.
So a little bit of anger, a little bit of apprehension maybe? All right, very good. Anybody got anything else? Yes, sir. Disappointment. And what are the words going through your mind?
I invested a lot in this person. Just by interviewing him, the expectations. I'd like other people to go with this person.
Very good. Yes.
I'm wondering if he's testing me, and so when I'm not happy, and I am going to ask, what's going on? What happened? Is everything all right?
Very good. Very good, Lee.
Fire his ass.
That little formula, B times do equal have, is ostentatiously called the formula for life. I found that a little simple and a little hard to swallow when I first came across this formula. I've since changed my mind. So when I first got into business coaching, I got into business coaching because I knew a lot of things, how to do things, how to do a lot of things in business. I'd been in the software business for about 30 years, and I'd written programs for virtually every department in every kind of a business. So my do side, and when you write software, you have to really learn stuff. I mean, you have to learn how things work. So my do side was very, very well armed. So I came into this thinking I'm going to show people how to do things. First thing I run into is a bunch of people. I thought I was coaching business. They call it business coach, right? There's people involved here. I'm okay with people generally if they'll get a lot of work done. Otherwise, I'll have to fire them. So now imagine this. I'm coaching people that they don't work for me. They're paying me to coach them. How easy is it to yell at them? You're doing everything wrong. You're fired. All right, I better find another technique. Right? It doesn't work. You have to adjust yourself and figure out how to help people. So my first couple years in business coaching weren't going very well because I was still, let me tell you what to do, let me tell you what to do, let me tell you what to do. And I wasn't really paying attention to the people side because I thought I was a business coach. Then I attend a presentation by another action coach, and he says, look, one thing I figured out is that 80% of the game is right here, working on the B side. That's the way to success. And I went, what does that mean? I was like, well, how do you work on your B side? What does that mean? And what does that have to do with anything? It didn't make any sense to me. But I was partially down that journey without knowing it. And the reason I was partially down that journey is because in my last company, early on, I had about 30 people working for me. Well, they started quitting on me and going out the door, and I wasn't getting 2 weeks' notice. Instead, I was getting a single finger. So I started reading things and studying things, and I was already down this path on B, and then I learned more about inaction. So here's what today is about. This little guy right here. There's a lot of science around it now, and basically it's this. The better person you are, the better you're able to deal with a whole bunch of stuff coming at you every day. And in business, do you need to deal with a whole bunch of stuff coming at you every day? Do you not have to switch from being nice as pie to a client to turning around and strong-arming a vendor and then trying to counsel an employee? Or you're going from amazing moment to amazing moment all the time. And that's why this part works. There's a term that's, there's a couple of books out there in a term, and I'm going to share with you a couple of ideas around it. And the term is called emotional quotient. Has anybody read or studied emotional quotient? All right. So you all have heard of IQ, right? All right. So how good is IQ as a predictor of success? Anybody know? It's almost a predictor of failure. The smarter you are, the more likely you're going to end up in trouble. 70, I think it's like 70% of smart people work for people not as smart as them. Anybody hear of this guy named Richard Branson? Sir Richard Branson? Anybody know anything about him? What can you tell me about him? Virgin Airlines, Virgin Record and Tapes, Virgin Telephones. He actually owns 350 companies. He's worth $5 billion. His IQ is slightly below average. It's about 92. He has a whole bunch of really smart people working for him. 350 companies, $5 billion, IQ of 90, 92. But that make you think. Have you ever had the thought, am I smart enough to do this? You may be too smart to do this. He makes it really simple. He knows how to get a culture going in a business where people like each other, and then he gets out of their way because he's not smart enough to run any of his businesses, in his own opinion. Pretty amazing, huh? So IQ, which he doesn't have much of, is not a very good predictor of success. There's something else called EQ, emotional quotient. And EQ is what you have to raise to strengthen your B side. It's EQ. Emotional? Where does that go with business? Don't we try to get less emotional in business? A little dry? Anybody run into really dry business people? Yeah, you're okay, you're okay. We have to kill you. You're okay, you're okay. Right? I came across this great quote from Winston Churchill about a month ago, and I think I've told somebody about it every single day since I've heard it. And this is the quote. Now, people believe that Winston Churchill is the reason we're not speaking German right now. He's the one who stood up and stopped Nazi Germany and brought everybody else to the table. His quote is, "Success is going from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." I've never heard a higher bar. No loss of enthusiasm. That is, as excited as you are going into the first thing that you fail at, you're just as exciting at the 7th failure in a row. Yes, Mary?
Dennis, forgive me, but I really would like to tell you, you know the etymology, the root of enthusiasm?
No.
Entheos, God within you.
The God within you.
Calls you enthusiastic, you're telling them that they're filled with God.
Ah.
Literally, the etymology.
Ah.
So what you said really rang true with me.
Thank you.
One disappointment after another, but you still stay filled with God.
Absolutely.
You don't give up, you don't quit. Forgive me, it's my background.
It's okay. Thank you, Mary. That's a very, very good point. Enthusiasm is amazing. My small brain went right off the track there, Mary. What the heck was I saying? No, that's okay. Churchill, thank you. Somebody's paying attention back there. Thanks, man. So the Churchill quote, no loss of enthusiasm. So there's this guy, that bankrupted 8 companies. What do you think his enthusiasm level when he gets to 9 is? How would you feel after you bankrupted 2 companies? Would you be doubting yourself a bit? 3 companies? Are you starting to wonder? 5 companies? What's your friends and family telling you? You get to 7 companies you've bankrupted in a row? Is anybody still talking to you? Or are they trying to commit you? So he bankrupted 8 companies. Now his 9th company was Coca-Cola. So here's the simple secret. People who can go from failure to failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm are the most successful people. They have a high EQ. Nothing slows them down. They don't lose their confidence in themselves. The power within, the God within, it's constant. What happens outside is just learning opportunities. He had 8 times to learn what wouldn't work. That was all he thought. Okay, that doesn't work. And you know the famous Edison story, right? 997 things that don't light up. And he didn't get discouraged. He kept going. I mean, can you imagine? I've done 300 experiments. I can't get anything to light up. Should I give up? 500, 700, 900. Wow, okay? So this whole notion of EQ, when we look at it and study, is the difference. It's the good predictor of success. Of top successful people, 90% of them have a high emotional IQ, EQ. 90% of them. Of people not successful, only 20% of them have a high EQ. It's very much what's clear success predictor. And it's the last thing that we talk about in business usually. It's the last thing that anybody gets trained on because we haven't understood it very well until nowadays. How do you work on your EQ? What is your EQ? It's a good question. There is an EQ test, and there's a couple of books on EQ that have a test. The test provider I'm working with is actually working on. We don't have one live yet, but we're working with it. So I want to mix a couple things here, so you know. All of us come with a default personality style. And there are plenty of tests out there. Anybody ever taken a Myers-Briggs? Anybody remember what your 4 letters are? What are they? ENFP. An ENFP, all right. She's an extrovert and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Anybody take a DISC test? DISC gives you 1 letter, so I can remember 1 letter. Those 4 letters is too much for me. DISC gives you 1 letter. The whole point is one of the things science has discovered, and DISC was done back in the 1920s, so it's very well researched, that you all have a personality type. You fall into 1 of 4 categories according to DISC, right? And your personality type is your preferred style of behaving. And when we went around the room and listened to how people would respond to the gentleman coming late, we heard some different styles. And I'll point out too. Joe? Joe was going to be understanding and encouraging, right? Joe's a personality type S, likes to be supportive of people, likes to take care of people. And so his type is going to prejudice him towards finding out what's going on. Lee is my type. He's a D. We don't have a lot of patience. We're going to fire your ass. And we're going to move on instantly, right? So how we behave emotionally is a factor of 2 things. What is your personality type and what is your EQ? Now your personality type you're kind of wired with. Your EQ you can raise greatly. The difference in salary in average yearly pay be between somebody who has a high EQ and a low EQ is $29,000. $29,000 difference in pay. So when I start working with business people, these are the first things I now want to know. I want to know your personality type, because now I know what your probable behavior is going to be most of the time. Yes, Libby. In personality types, there isn't one of most value. They're all really valuable. And EQ is the most valuable thing to work on. Higher. Yeah, that's right. EQ is very valuable. But it's good, it's really helpful to know your personality, because your personality, each of the personality types is, the style gives them ability to deal well in a certain situation, but in other situations they don't do so well. And so whatever your style is, you will need to know what to work on. That will help you guide what to work on in your EQ. So let's talk about EQ. There are four steps to it, to working on your EQ. The first one is self-awareness. Many business people that I sit down and work with are completely unaware. I'll try to say this in a gentle way because I want to swear here. They're completely unaware what asses they really are. They don't know how to treat people. Most people who start a business are highly productive individual task monsters. They can get up and motivate themselves and work really, really hard. And they don't put up with any baloney from themselves. They're putting in 80, 90 hours. Can they treat an employee like that? No, they can't. And so, but do they try to? All day long they try to treat people that way, all day long. And then you meet them and they tell you stories like, I've been in business for 10 years, now I've been able to grow it for 10 years, and I haven't been able to keep employees for 10 years. What's wrong with this market? What's wrong with people nowadays? They don't really want to work. No, you're a jerk. They don't want to work for you. Simple as that. You have high turnover in clients because you're a jerk. They figure that out over time. They don't want to do business with you. It does not matter how good you are. I have seen some of the highest quality people get fired because of low EQ. It's as simple as that. Now, certain types, about 30 to 40% of the population, we're wired as task-oriented types. We put task before people. The worst of us, who are very strongly that way, will run people over to get a task done and say, well, then get out of the way next time. So if you're that kind of person and then you hire people to work for you, what happens? It's a disaster. It's like I was when I was hiring software people. It was a disaster. They were giving me a salute on the way out the door. So I started doing all this reading. There's lots of reading you can do on self-improvement, all right? So learn your personality type so you know where you're starting from. It's huge. Various people and personality types, we think, oh, we're the ones this way. No, you're part of a group of people who all behave in a particular manner. So somebody like Lee and I, who are the more D-dominant types who will say you're fired, we've got to work on learning a little bit of the S style. Well, wait, before we fire them, let's find out what happened. Oh, they're late because there was a car accident. Children were thrown from the car, and they're Red Cross members, and they provided CPR. We might have a little EQ work to do there. So, if you're in high D mode and you go out, you're late, you're fired, you've just fired a hero, right? You've just fired the exact kind of person you want working for you, who will stop and do the right thing, right? So you've got to have the wherewithal to stop and think and not simply indulge yourself. Because if we're angry, we go fire them. Who have we taken care of? Ourselves. Anger is self-indulgent. Disappointment is self-indulgent. Why is it about us? It's not about us. So in that moment, there's this moment at the universe gives us lots of events to respond to, doesn't it? There's an event, like the gentleman showing up late for work. There's an event, like a frustrated phone call from a client, right? These are events the universe gives us. We get to have a response to that event. So the event of a guy showing up late on his first day, we get to choose our response. And we all heard we have a completely wide range of responses because we have every personality type in the room. From S's to D's, I's, we heard the whole thing. So you may think that you're choosing your response logically, you're following your programming. And your programming is going to be good in most cases. In many cases, you will need to adjust a different style. In many cases, as a D, I have to consciously shift myself into S style so that I'm not a mean person. Otherwise, I'm pretty direct. Yes, sir.
But Dennis, when you start a business, you're running a business, you're running the business for your employees, you're running the business for your customers.
There's a slide for that. All right. When you first start the business, it's you and the customers. At which point you are taking care of the customers. Then you hire people, a team. They are now your main customers. And you have to look at them that way. They're the customers of your leadership, your planning, your job organization. They're the customers of everything. And are you setting them up to be successful? The biggest mistake business people make is when they get people is think, oh, now you're a tool I'm using to take care of these people. How does that feel? If you're the tool, and how well do you like the boss? Oh, he's really nice to employees, but close the door. We're just there to help him serve his customers. He doesn't, he doesn't really see us as people.
But if you don't serve the customers, if you concentrate on serving your team, then you end up with no customers.
Here's what Richard Branson learned, which is the opposite. That if you take care of this team really well, they're going to take care of the customers really well. The customers are going to take care of the business really well, and it's going to take really good care of you. That's what he learned that us smart people are too smart to figure out. Treat these people really, now get good people. Number one, the single most important thing you do in small business is hire. Single most important thing. But if you get good people, take good care of them. They will pass that on. If you take bad care of them because you're putting them first, the guy over at Dogus, what's his name? Matt. He told me the story, or he told the story at a presentation where he came back to the office at firing the oldest customer because they were treating the people bad. And he got a standing ovation in the plant. Fired the company's oldest customer because they were treating his people poorly. Those people will now go to the wall for him. He'll show up and they'll be working overtime. They'll be working late at night. Why? This guy cares about them. Not some, that means we can now care about them. That is an amazing learning. You have employees, they're your customers. Now, you want to have good customers, right? Thank you. Yes, Janice.
Well, that just makes sense because if you have, if you're treating people well, they're going to be more productive. There's going to be a higher morale. They're going to be happier, and there's going to be a low turnover, which in turn is going to make the owner money as well because they're not constantly making money to hire people.
Provided that you hire the right people.
That's right. That's why hiring is the most important thing. If you get the right people, you have exactly that. That's what happens. It's an amazing thing. And so Peter Drucker, a pretty good business writer, writes this. Culture eats strategy for lunch. I can give a great strategy to an idiot who's crapping on his employees all day long, taking advantage of customers, and it's going to bomb. And he's going to come to me, your strategy sucked. No, sorry. Now I can give a mediocre strategy to an owner and a team that are playing well together, and they'll kill it because they'll work together. Do you want to do business with anybody? You might know experts, but if you don't like, know, and trust them, do you want to do business with them? It's not about the do side, has been my discovery. It's about the B side. I'm sorry, Mary's on her way to a funeral, and I made a very tasteless joke about it when she came in, but she's a good sport. She laughed. All right, so does that kind of answer your question? Even when you're starting, now here's, there's a great book out there by another business coach, Marshall Goldsmith, and his book is What Got You There, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. When you start a business and you're working on your own, working like a madman will get you some success. As soon as you start hiring people, trying to work like a madman and work other people like madmen will now be a failure mode. What got you here will not get you there. In every case, to make the next transition, you've got to stop doing everything that made you successful. So if you're hiring people because you're a workaholic, you've been a workaholic and now you're hiring people, you've got to stop being a workaholic and create a good culture for people to work in, that they love coming to work. Has anybody read Good to Great? Good to Great. Has anybody read Good to Great? It's a fantastic book. It restored my faith in business that I had lost as a young man watching all the crappy shows with crappy bosses. You see people on TV, and frankly, some of the high level of executives we see on TV and on talk shows, I don't want anything to do with business if that's what business success looks like. I'm sorry, they're not nice people. So I read this book, Good to Great, and Good to Great had this point of view. We are going to find the best companies in America over a 25-year period of time. Public companies, because we're looking for companies that have outperformed the stock market by a factor of 3 for 15 straight years. They did 3 times better than the growth of the stock market for 15 straight years. They found 11 companies in America in a 25-year period, I think it was from 70 to 95, who did that. And they went and studied all 11 companies. Then they found 11 similar companies in similar industries that did not make that transition from good to great. What is the difference? They wanted to know what the difference was. The coolest thing about the book, it's a research book, is that the authors came to conclusions that they did not foresee. They had to make all sorts of conclusions that they did not foresee. Number one thing they came to the conclusion is hiring is the single most important thing you do. Having the right people in the right seats. Now, the other interesting thing, you have never heard of the 11 CEOs of the best companies in this country. Not a single name of them have you ever heard. You read the book twice? Can you remember any of their names? I can't. 11 best CEOs in this country we have never heard of. They haven't been on talk shows. They're not running for office. They're not doing any of that. Now, just so you know, the ones you see on talk shows and running for office did not do well in the book. They were called failures in the book because they did not have that sustained growth and outperformance. They were going up and down, bankruptcy and back up, bankruptcy and back up, right? You never heard of these people. And what they had was a very high emotional quotient. They didn't work long hours, any of them. They weren't workaholics. They got the right people in the right seats, and they created a great culture. Culture eats strategy for lunch. All right, I'm ready for the next question. Back to this. So life gives us lots of events. We get to choose our response. That's our sole freedom in life, choosing our response to what comes at us. And that leads to some outcome. Very good. Now, when we're opening the door and we're feeling that little, maybe for some of our types, that wave of anger, if we then respond from that emotional response, anger, how effective is our response going to be? My type is liable to go out there and fire them, then I'll be short a guy for the day, and I'll have to do the work, and all I did was indulge my anger and shoot my own toes off, right? So there's a big skill in here. It's called reframe. Can we expand this gap a little bit so that we think through the responses that our emotions and our body is presenting to us? And can we choose the right one that gets us the outcome we want? Can we stop and go, okay, what do I want out of this? All right, I might have an opportunity here to both help someone and help my business. I might find out that they've got a serious situation happened at home. Well, I got here as soon as I can, but there was an accident. My wife's taken my daughter to the hospital. Now, as a good person, what I'm going to say right there is, you need to go to the hospital. It's okay. I understand it's your first day, but the family is why we do this. And that's why we're doing this. I can't take care of my family and abuse yours. Go take care of it. Now, what kind of employee do I now have? A loyal one. When I need something, I'm not going to have to ask. They're going to go, that guy was thoughtful. I'm going to take care of that for him. That's the kind of culture that succeeds in business. Expand the gap, reframe. Your type, your current emotional state, all those things drive in there. Many business people run themselves. Anybody know anybody in business that runs themselves at a high level of anxiety all the time? So they have this much of a margin, one little thing, and they blow up? That's your emotional state. Can you manage your emotional state? Step number 2 after self-awareness is self-leadership. Self-leadership is I am responsible for my emotional state, nothing else. Now, this is where a lot of us lie to ourselves and say lies out loud. I might say, man, Lee, that question made me angry. You made me angry, Lee. I'm now blaming Lee on my anger. Does Lee actually have the ability to reach into my head and flip on my angry switch? He doesn't. Now, as an attorney, I'm sure he might have tried a few times. They like to do that, to see if they can provoke somebody. But in reality, I choose if I'm going to be angry. It's my choice, right? He can't look in and flip on my angry switch. Now, if I'm leading myself so let's say there's some things not going on well in business. The number one thing that doesn't go on well in business is what? Cash. Thank you. It's the number one thing. That's the number one stressor in business. I don't have enough cash to pay the bills. What am I going to do? I'm running out of cash. Most business owners pay everybody else and pay themselves last. And the employees are thinking, yeah, he's doing well. Most of them are not doing well. They're getting by month to month. They're trying to take care of everybody else, customers, team members. So if you're spending all of your time worried about cash, what's your emotional state? You're freaked out, right? You're freaked out. So you're freaked out, and a customer comes to you and needs help. Let's stop there for a second. All of your emotions are something physiologically inside you. Do you understand that? They're physical. They're not just in your, even your thoughts. Your biggest dreams are physical in your brain as neural networks, right? Everything you think and feel is physiologically solid and real in your body. So if you're anxious, you are effectively in fight or flight. Does that make sense? What is the impact physiologically on your body if you're in fight or flight? Anybody know? Tense? Sweat? Blood drains from your cerebral cortex to go to your hands and feet so you can run or hit things. How much higher thinking can you do with no blood in your cerebral cortex? One for Andy. That's a good one. Make yourself dumb automatically. All right, I have to deal with that. I don't know what to do. Stay tuned. Next seminar, I'll answer that. But when you're stressed out, blood runs to the higher part of your brain. You simply cannot think well anymore. You are now ready to fight or flight. Okay, so the next customer who talks to you or the next employee who talks to you, how much margin do you have if they're not in a good state? before you blow up and lose your mind? Fire him or quit or do something. Not very much, right? So if you're spending time thinking all day long about what's not going well, what are you setting yourself up for? Failure. You're disabling yourself emotionally. You also inject cortisol into your bloodstream, which is a toxin but will burn energy faster. It's basically shortening your life. So we all know stress shortens your life, right? So if you spend time, let's say, this is what a lot of business people, they're at home with the kids. What are they thinking about? How am I going to make payroll tomorrow? They're at work the next day and they're getting texts from their wife that she has to go to teach, she's been called into school. What are they thinking about? They're thinking about home. They're never where they're at. So you've got this internal dialogue all day long. You're talking to yourself, right? How nice are you to yourself? Does anybody come out of a situation thinking, oh, I suck at sales? Do that kind of thing? Was anybody told, like in 4th grade, they're not good at math and they've now repeated that to themselves 10,000 times? That's called self-mythology, head trash, dump it. Your brain is a very plastic device. You can become good at anything you want to because it's just doing it, thinking about it makes a permanent neural network. And so people have proven that they can become savants, math savants. Just by training and doing calculations all the time, they can become a savant. So you can train your brain to be anything you want if you're willing to put in the work, right? So self-leadership, big part of it is taking responsibility for that inner dialogue. Are you using thoughts all day long that are cranking your anxiety up? So that when somebody needs your help, all you can think about is yourself. Because you got yourself in such a muck from thinking about everything that's stressing you out. So if Edison was getting stressed out about all those experiments going wrong, can he do the next one? You know, do you disable yourself with your thinking? This is the largest thing I see. People with angry thinking and anxiety. I talk to business people who can't sit down for 10 minutes in a row. They've got themselves at such a high level of anxiety. They want to know, they're asking me, what do I do to fix my business? You need to sit down and calm down. I can't, I need to fix my business. That's a tough little, path to walk with them. They're tough to work with. Well, if you can get them to the other side where they realize that they were just bathing in a all day long negative discussion with themselves, that every now and then another human, said hello and they went, what do you want? Because they got this crap going on in their head all day long. Negative self-thinking. I used to think this was silly, but now I've studied all the brain science behind it. I'm like, holy crap. It's true. We don't want a real noisy head where we can't think. We want it nice and calm where we can evaluate and think and make choices when we can. Sometimes we can't. But if we maintain ourselves at this edge, we fail when we don't treat people well. So self-leadership looks like finding out who you are, taking personality tests, learning about yourself, doing some reading. There's an emotional quotient book out, several of them, probably a dozen by now. You can read about this stuff. You can get a personality test. You can get some direct feedback. The #1 business coach in the world, this guy Marshall Goldsmith, who I mentioned, who coaches people like the CEO of Ford and the president of the World Bank and top U.S. generals. He only coaches on one thing. He doesn't talk about business or strategy or marketing. He only coaches on this stuff, behavior. How are we thinking and how are we treating people around us? The guy who turned Ford around, Alan Mulally, if you've heard of him, he's the guy who turned Ford around and the reason Ford didn't need any government investment. He's been a client of Marshall's. And at Ford, he had a zero tolerance policy. There was no bad behavior. There were no jerks. There was nobody being rude to anybody. And he let 2 directors go when he first started who didn't want to play and be nice to people. Very good. Now, the silliest part of self-leadership to me when I first learned about it, has anybody heard of using positive affirmations? Does anybody remember Stuart Smalley? Okay, Stuart Smalley was a character on Saturday Night Live who made fun of positive affirmations. And I'm the kind that really enjoyed it. In fact, I bought the book, the Stuart Smalley book. I thought it was hilarious. So when people told me I had to do this self-affirmation stuff, my self-talk was, that's stupid. Now, I used to be a very angry guy. I'm a high D and a personality type, and the go-to emotion for high Ds is anger. So I spent at least 10 solid years of my life angry. And somewhere along in there, I realized that I was spending my time angry, and a lot of people around me were having fun. And perhaps I should look into that. It only took 10 years. Way too smart to be successful sometimes. So I started looking into it, and they said, you got to do this self-talk. And I'm like, no, that's silly. So this angry guy stands in front of the mirror one morning and says, I am in a state of joy. And then I look in the mirror, and I'm smiling because I think it's stupid and it's funny. And I'm like, oh, wait, that worked. And that really made me mad. And then I laughed at myself more and said, damn it, there might be something to this. So several times a day for 10 years now, I say to myself, I am in a state of joy. I say, I am having an amazing day. I say, I'm having fun today. All of these are things that are opposite my personality type because I'm task-oriented and angry naturally. That puts me in a different place. So imagine now how I show up with my clients. If I'm showing up angry versus I'm showing up in a state of joy, what has a better impact on them? Yeah, what do you want to be around? I went from repellent to attractive. It was astonishing. I literally, people went from avoiding me to seeking me out. And I was like, wow, it's amazing. I just have to change my state. I have to learn to take responsibility to change my state. It's respectful. If I'm sitting down with somebody like Joe, I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to slow my pace down because he's a really nice type S just based on his answer. And then he'll find it okay to talk to me. If I come in at high energy, real direct, you're like, yeah, real nice talk to you. Never return my call again, right? That's what S's do. They're the really nicest people. They don't want to hurt your feelings, so they just won't talk to you anymore because they don't want to tell you they think you're a jerk. Really, really nice people. So I started doing the self-talk, and it's changed my life. Now, I was in a seminar, and I was talking to the #1 business coach in the world in the action system. This is a guy who's working 3 days a week, bringing in $100,000 a month. I'm not there. I'm like, okay, and he tells this whole room of coaches that he spends 30 minutes a morning and an evening doing self-talk. Kill me now. I would like to get to his level. So I raise my hand and say, okay, Earl. And Earl's this gigantic human being. We call him Planet Earl. Good guy. He's a big bear. So, okay, Earl, just how important is this to your success? And he goes, oh, good question. Surprised I haven't been asked that. Let me think. This is the single most important thing I've ever done. Damn it, Earl. It's not what I wanted to hear. But seeing how he's there and I'm here, I'm starting to pay attention and listen. And before, anybody have trouble making phone calls to customers, or they get a little nervous picking up the 10,000-pound phone? Earl has a set of 10 I am statements he says out loud before he picks up the phone. I'm wonderful on the phone. I enjoy talking to people on the phone. It's all, that set his mood so that when you answer the phone, you're like, wow, this guy's energetic. Maybe I do want to talk to them. They have some positive energy. So all this stuff I thought was completely nutty turns out to be, when I now read about EQ, and the way to success is to work on your B side. Self-awareness, self-leadership. And when you learn that, you can start doing, I've done enough personality testing that I can pretty much on your answers tell you your personality type. So now that I know your type, I can be respectful and adjust myself in a way that you'll find it easier to talk to me. If I'm talking to a fast-paced person, I can speed up. Slower paced, I can slow down. I can do whatever is necessary to be respectful and talk to you in a way you'll communicate with me, and I can communicate with you. So, part 3 and 4 of this is really the extension is other awareness. Now, other awareness is much easier when you're not totally stressed out inside and thinking about yourself all the time. Because if you're upset and things aren't going well and that's all you're thinking about, you show up somewhere, you're thinking about you. You're not actually looking out and paying attention to the people around you. It's about the other people in business. It's not about you. Put other people first. So I can become aware, is this person really what their type is? I can kind of look at you and tell from your body language what your mental state is, whether you're running at a high line of anxiety, and I'm going to have to be careful in talking to you because I don't want to trip any wires and have you blow up, unless I need to, which sometimes I do. I do have to trip a wire, and I have to get my clients to blow up. Sometimes I have to do that because that's what they need to be able to see themselves. And then fourth is other leadership. If you've got yourself together and are able to be where you're at and be a great listener, well, then you can help other people move forward. And you can become an attractant. They'll say, wow, let's go talk to them. It's all, we always feel better and we always seem to get clearer once we talk to them. We get out of our emotional state and choose a different one. And fifth is rinse and repeat. I seem to be, I'm a very high D type personality, so I tend to be, Ds tend to be anxious and angry all the time. So every day I wake up in that state and I use self-talk to get myself to a place where people can actually put up with me most of the time. I still run a few people off because I'm a high energy guy, and S's in particular might find me hard to take because they like it nice and calm, peaceful, and easy. They don't like all the emotion. So I've still got work to do, but I do, and I did mental training on the way here today. I do mental training several times a day to get myself to the state that I want to be in, because I want to enjoy my life. I'm 58 years old. I've got 2 children. I'm trying to enjoy my life. I spent enough years angry building businesses and fighting. It's not worth it. Life is short. I'm going to have some fun now, and I am having lots of fun. And one of the biggest learnings for me is that working on my emotional quotient. The more I work on that, the more successful I am. The more I work on my B side, the better everything has gotten. To the point of fact, and I'll end with this. There was this itty-bitty accident at NASA a number of years ago. We spent 17 years and $14 billion, and we launched a satellite with the Hubble telescope, and it poked its little eye out the first time and couldn't see anything. Anybody remember that? It was really, really blurry. And in fact, the head of NASA was called before Congress to explain how we spent $14 billion and launched a satellite that couldn't see anything. All right? So we're talking about lots and lots of companies, lots and lots of money, lots and lots of stink, and people going to get fired and held accountable. And there's this gigantic investigation as to what led to the Hubble failure. Now here's the conclusion that's astonishing. What led to the Hubble failure was the culture at NASA. The internal bureaucratic team versus the external vendor team. Now, these are all engineers. You would think they'd be nice people. They hated each other's guts. Money-grubbing capitalists, they don't care anything about profit. Bureaucrats, they can come up with a new checklist every day for us to get past. They don't care that it's costing us money to explain everything 10 times. They hated each other. That's what led to poor communications, which what led to a screw not being turned 1/8 more somewhere along the way, which is why it was blurry. NASA came to the conclusion, think about this, NASA, an organization of engineers, came to the conclusion that NASA investing in technical training was almost worthless. But if NASA invested in soft skills training, they got an 80% return on investment. It wasn't that they weren't all smart and knew what to do, it's that they were all crappy in EQ terms. They were showing up angry and working angry. So NASA they have a whole different way of putting together teams, and now they teach this whole set of soft skills, how to have meetings, how to respect people, and things go much better. So everybody's learning on this planet. Somebody said this earlier about happy people being more productive. I think it was Janice. Happy people, the research shows, are 30% more productive. Work on your soft skills, get your team to work together and have fun. That's the way to success. What got you there, that hard work, being crazy, won't get you to the next stage. So look into EQ. It's the best indicator of success, and work on your own. Thank you very much.
Dennis, thank you very much. I've attended a number of Dennis's presentations. I've always learned something from it, and I guess today one of the things that I've learned is, you know, we have to have that self-talk. So I'd ask all of you to repeat after me. I feel great. I feel great. Come on. I feel great. Come on. I feel great. Okay. Okay, with that, thank you very much for coming. We will see you next week. Be sure to bring as many friends as you would like to. Because what our goal is to knock that wall out and expand into that second part of the room. Have a good week.